Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1 Episode 4 review of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? So last time I continued my 2024 summer special with the release of my review of Season 1 Episode 8 of the new Scooby Doo movies, which was the Sonny and Cher episode, so I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts on that episode and my review on that, and I hope you guys just had a good time with that video. I've been having a lot of fun tackling the new Scooby Doo movies, as well as, re-reviewing the first 10 episodes of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? But of course today I'll be covering Season 1 Episode 4 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You, titled Mind Your Own Business, which was released on October 4th, 1969. The short synopsis of the episode is, the gang get lost in the desert and end up in Gold City, a spooky ghost town. They check into a deserted inn where the owner explains that everybody has been scared off by the Miner 49er. They wind up in another mystery involving an abandoned gold mine and a ghostly moaning miner. So as per usual, I'll be watching Season 1 Episode 4 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You on the Scooby Doo, Where Are You, the complete series box set. This has every single episode of, Scooby Doo, Where Are You, including the fake third season, which, I've talked about that plenty of times. You don't need to hear me keep reiterating that, so we'll move on from that. But yeah, it has a lot of good special features on it. I do go in depth with it on my Season 2 Episode 8 review, so if you want to go check that out, you can go right ahead and hear my thoughts on that. But as far as the reception of this episode goes, I believe most fans consider the Miner 49er episode to not be one of the best episodes of the series. In fact, it's usually ranked pretty poorly. I also have to mention that something that doesn't get mentioned a lot is this episode is the only one in the title card sequence to have a different music cue than the other episodes. The other episodes have the same music cue. For some reason, they not only changed the music cue, but I think they also changed the text color. The text color is usually yellow. This time it's red. So I wonder if they were thinking of experimenting or just thought that it fit this episode's vibe, so they wanted to spice it up a little bit. But regardless, I definitely noticed, and it's not usually talked about a lot, so I just thought I'd bring that up. But yeah, in my original review, I didn't rank the Miner 49er episode that high. I considered Season 1 Episode 4 to be a pretty poor episode when I first reviewed it, and I've always thought of it pretty poorly. But it has a second chance to win me over, and it could, will it, boost my opinion on this episode to, like, an average opinion, or a positive opinion? Or will my opinion stay the same, and will it be a negative one, and I still won't end up liking this episode? Well, let's find out, shall we? So why don't we take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the new of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? The episode begins with the gang being lost thanks to Shaggy's bad navigation as he was holding the map upside down, and they wind up in an old western ghost town called Gold City on a stormy night. And this is just embarrassing because Shaggy should know better. Like, come on, Shaggy, like, you should know if the map is upside down or not. That's so embarrassing. They check into a guest ranch whose owner, Big Ben, is delighted to see them. It seems that he has no guests for quite a, spell. When the gang wonder about this, Ben's assistant, Hank, explains that the reason the guest ranch and the town as a whole is so deserted is on the account of the Miner 49er. He says that the Miner 49er is the ghost of an old prospector who haunts the local mine, searching for the last vein of gold. Hank even tells them that at night, you can hear the mine moaning, calling for the miner. He's been scaring all the guests away, and Hank himself intends to leave soon, in the morning. As Hank's telling the story about the Miner 49er, there's a couple things that bother me. The first thing is that there's an animation error twice of Velma having lipstick, which is like, ew, that's just wrong. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't need to see Velma with lipstick. Like, I'd rather that just be Daphne's thing. It's fucking gross. Like, it just doesn't look right. It's not that cool. It's not that great. The other thing, too, is that Scooby looks into a hotel door, and he sees an eye looking back at him. And he opens the door, and there's nobody in there, and then he shuts it. So I have to wonder what the hell was in that room. An animal? Another person that isn't related to the episode at all, that was just overhearing them? Like some homeless person or something? Or was it a ghost? Or like some type of demon or something? I have to know what the hell was behind that door. With the gang really have nothing else better to do, they decide to head into Gold City to look around. Initially, they don't find anything, though in the saloon, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby somehow get separated from Fred and Daphne. I don't know how. Shaggy and Scooby are, startled by what seems to be a ghost playing a piano, but Velma tells them that it's not a ghost and that it's only an automatic player piano. Also, somehow, the minor 49er serves them, cups filled with cobwebs when Shaggy and Scooby ask for sarsaparilla from the bartender, and Shaggy and Scooby somehow don't see the minor 49er? How did they not see him? He was right there. He's the one that tossed them the drinks. Then later on, when the gang goes into the hotel, first things first, Shaggy pushes Scooby in, in the building, with Scooby being reluctant. Like, it was very mean of him to just push Scooby in like that before Scooby had a chance to get aware of his surroundings. So I found that a little mean from Shaggy. Shaggy and Scooby get separated from the rest of the gang for a certain point because Scooby for some reason decides to wander off and look into another room. So when they go into that room, Shaggy is frightened by a tree branch, thinking that it's the minor 49er as well as Scooby that's got them, thinking that the minor 49ers got them. And until they figure out that it's a branch when they get pulled out of the window, and the gang regroup in the hotel after that scene. I like the branch scene because it's funny, it's comedic, of Shaggy and Scooby, and there's a lot of good humor in this episode, so I found the branch scene pretty funny.
Hey, Scooby, come on! Oh, wait for me! It's lucky for you, the room's empty. Let's get back to the others. He's got me! Help! It's only a tree branch. I knew it all the time.
As the gang continue investigating the hotel, they walk past the mirror, and Scooby stops by on the mirror, two-way mirror, because Scooby, decides to look at himself in the mirror and then sees the minor 49er. Scooby gets panicked by the appearance of the minor in the two-way mirror, and he knocks over a cigar store Indian, dislodging a map of Gold City with what appears to be some safe combination scribbled on the corner of the paper. I do like the chase scene with the two-way mirror chase scene of the miner. It's a pretty fun little chase scene of Scooby trying to evade the miner. So that's a good chase scene.
Keep together now.
Zoinks! The miner's chasing Scooby!
Some miner. It's only a cigar store Indian.
When the gang gets to the hotel safe, Shaggy must have completely forgot about the whole combination thing because he tries to open it himself. I do like Shaggy's confidence of wanting to open the hotel safe without the combination. So I think that's pretty cool when he doesn't, it does show a little bit of a skill that Shaggy, if they do need to, Shaggy could open a safe down the line in the future. I think that's a really cool, neat skill of Shaggy's. Of course, Fred tells him that they already have the combination, and Scooby ends up opening it anyways. So it was open the whole time. So they opening the hotel safe, they find a secret elevator, which takes them down into the mine itself. Scooby's very reluctant to go down to the mine, but they give him, I think 2 Scooby snacks, Daphne does, and eventually they all go down, and they decide to explore the mine to find if there's any miner 49er down there. After Shaggy causes a mishap with dynamite, which he mistakes for candles since the gang asks for some light, and Shaggy thinks he finds candles, but it ends up being dynamite, which is actually pretty humorous scene too. They explore the mine and find that it's lit up by lanterns, then they hear a frightful moaning echoing through the mine. The gang decide to split up, with Fred, Daphne, and Velma going one way, and Shaggy and Scooby going another way, and Scooby's being a little mean by, trying to scare Shaggy when he's already pretty uptight. And they also whistle in this episode, Shaggy and Scooby, so I'm wondering if Shaggy and Scooby whistling is like a nice, little quirk that they do to help calm their nerves. Which, if it is, I think that's something that got lost in later series, them whistling to calm their nerves. When Shaggy and Scooby look behind, different doors, Scooby keeps encountering the Miner 49er. He appears and disappears behind some doors. Shaggy doesn't believe that, what Scooby's saying, what he's seeing. He just thinks Scooby's either trying to scare him again, or is uptight and, getting really scared. Eventually, though, Shaggy does see the Miner 49er after the third time Scooby opens the opposite door. And so, Shaggy and Scooby run away and go into a rail car. But in the process, Fred also manages to accidentally scare Shaggy and Scooby, thanks to him falling into a room full of baking flour. We even get a little bit of humor in this, as we get the famous scene of Fred turning his neck the whole 180 degrees like he's an owl, and that's been used as a meme time and time again. And it's pretty ridiculous how he can turn his head that far. And when they go to pick up Daphne, because Daphne, being her danger-prone self, falls into the mine shaft, Scooby picks up who he thinks is Daphne, but it ends up being the Miner 49er, and he drops his ass so quick, he's like, fuck that, and he drops the Miner 49er straight down into the mine. But the pieces are starting to fall together when the gang follows a wire that leads them to a room containing a tape recorder, a microphone / loudspeaker setup, which is what's been making the moaning that they've been hearing, because they heard the moaning the second time, and Shaggy even makes a nice little quip of, if I had a face like that, I'd moan too, which was a nice joke. They also find jars filled with crude oil, which Shaggy mistakenly thinks that is chocolate syrup. With the gang seemingly having solved the mystery, they decide to lay a trap for the Miner 49er, and they do a pretty impressive trap for him, as there's not really much, there's no bait this time. Instead, Shaggy and Scooby do something pretty creative this time. So Shaggy imitates a train, train-type noises over the microphone, so we get to see him do his imitation skills again, while Scooby piles a rail car with a loudspeaker and a flashlight attached, and Scooby is imitating the train physically dashing through the mine tunnel, which he chases the Miner 49er into through a shack, and he destroys the old shack in the process because Scooby can't stop. And Fred closes the door behind the miner and then gets out of the way before Scooby, bashes into the old shack where the miner was just trapped. So I thought the trap was pretty cool. Shaggy and Scooby kind of, I like the scene because we get to see more Shaggy's imitation skills. Scooby gets involved in the act, and they kind of are the ones to lure the Miner 49er to the trap, but not really so much as bait. They use their skill sets to trick the Miner by thinking there's a train after him, and then Fred locks him behind a door, which is simple. It's nothing, you know, flashy for this trap. But I still like the whole, you know, trap scene. I think it's very creative and inventive, and it's a good scene.
Listen to that Shaggy go. And Scooby's great at being a train.
Oh no! Scooby can't stop!
The Miner 49er's boots fall off to reveal stilts, and he is then unmasked as, surprise, surprise, Hank. Kinda not surprising considering Hank had the same fucking clothing as the Miner 49er. And the next day, Big Ben is surprised to learn that it was Hank who was the one scaring off his guests to force him out of business. The gang explains that Hank had discovered that the mine, though exhausted of gold, was sitting on an oil well, and subsequently dressed up as the miner to scare off everybody so he could cheaply buy the land and exploit it for all it's worth with the oil. Big Ben asks the gang how Hank knew about the oil. Daphne starts by saying that Hank accidentally found the secret mine elevator in the old hotel safe, and Thelma continues by saying that instead of finding gold, Hank discovered the oil, and Fred explains that Hank knew the exact location laid out on a map. And Shaggy finishes by saying that Hank then hid the map in the cigar store Indian for safekeeping. A disappointed Big Ben comments that he and Hank could have been partners, and he's really, he's really hurt by the fact that Hank tried to drive him out, away from his business when they could have made something out of it. And Fred agrees, saying instead of being rich, Hank is in jail, which is a little bit questionable because a lot of people have brought this up. They use this as usually an example of, when people say, why these Scooby Doo villains get arrested sometimes in the original series. This episode's often brought up as an example. People don't understand why Hank exactly got arrested. The only thing he really did that could be arrest-worthy was trespassing on the old mine, but technically the gang were as well. I guess they let go of the charges on them and just decided to do it on Hank. But yeah, I guess he got arrested for trespassing, maybe. Not sure why, but he did. And Shaggy wonders where Scooby is, and Scooby's seen using the stilts used by Hank when impersonating the miner to nab some apples from a tree. Fred yells at Scooby to watch out for the gopher hole. It's too late as Scooby steps into the gopher hole. However, Scooby loses his balance and falls into a water trout. Scooby ends the episode saying his name famously, and Shaggy concludes that one of the apples better be for him. Which, yeah, Scooby, you better give him an apple, because, you're supposed to be his best buddy. Give him an apple. Throw him a solid. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 4 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? 4 stars out of 5. So yeah, my opinion on the episode has drastically changed from when I first reviewed it. I think it was because of my view of the villain of the episode, the Miner 49er, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I think I let my, bias towards him, my negative bias towards him, bring down the episode. And I realized that there were a lot of better elements this time around, and the episode wasn't as bad as I remember it being. So I'm actually very surprised. This is the first episode that my opinion has really changed a lot since I first reviewed it and first watched it. So why don't I explain it to you guys, and let's dive into the negatives first and get them out of the way. So starting off with the negatives, the first one I have is that I feel like Daphne was very weak in this episode. I feel like she had her like little danger prone moment in the episode, and she gave like Scooby snacks. But other than that, like I kind of felt like she was underutilized and wasn't used as well as she could have been. I was a little bit disappointed with Daphne's utilization, and I think they could have given her more to do. So yeah, I found Daphne pretty underwhelming in this episode. Next, I found the villain of the episode to be pretty weak in my mind. I have always felt that the Minor 49er was a weak villain, and I've always been puzzled at why he was viewed as this really good Scooby Doo villain, why he's always remembered well by the Scooby Doo community, because he always is brought up in later movies and in later stuff, and you know he's always referenced back to. So I always wondered what makes him, you know, so memorable, despite the fact that people don't really like this episode, and I've heard not great things about the Minor 49er. And my opinion hasn't changed on the Minor 49er. I still think he's not a good villain, but I think I've come to realize that he does have moments that he does shine in a little bit, where he's a bit creepy. I like when he's just standing in the dark, you know, kind of stalking the gang, not, you know, kind of just in the shadows. But other than that, I really don't find him a scary or threatening villain. I also don't find him a very fun villain either. He's just very weak and disappointing because there could have been stuff to make him better than he was, and the environment he's in, Gold City, is a good environment to be scary in. He had the opportunity to become a really good villain. Maybe if he had like a pickaxe or something, or tried to pose more of a threat towards the gang, it could have worked with him. But I feel like overall, my biggest issue with him is that just besides those moments when he's just, you know, stalking the gang in the dark and kind of hiding in the shadows and being a little creep, I feel like he doesn't do much to really threaten the gang's safety or really make them fear that they're in some sort of danger. I think they had a big missed opportunity to give the Minor 49er a chance to be scary, even more scary and more threatening, and a really good villain. Had he had like a pickaxe or something, like a Minor would, he might have been a good Scooby-Doo villain, because he would have at least had some type of weapon to make him threatening. I also kind of like the design of the Minor too. I like the whole skinny build. Most Minors, I'm not really a big fan of the live action movie where they tried to beef him up and make him fat. I actually like the skinny design and the tall, lengthy design. It makes him more menacing when he's in the shadows. But yeah, I still hold the opinion that I don't understand why the Minor 49er is referenced a lot. I personally think he's a very weak villain, and he's a very disappointment. Like, he's a missed opportunity that could have been really good had they given him a little bit more for him. A little more moments to shine, and maybe a weapon or something could have maybe helped solidify that he was a real threat and a real danger to the gang's safety. But yeah, I still hold the opinion Minor 49er just was a disappointing villain, just a very weak and disappointing villain. I didn't really find him that scary at all. I didn't find him fun or entertaining. He just was very disappointing. Finally, I found the atmosphere of the episode to be pretty non-existent. I didn't really feel any sort of tension or suspense while the gang were going through Gold City and the mine. I think neither from the villain, because he was weak, but also not naturally, because there was nothing in the environment that suggests that they were in any sort of danger, or threaten their safety. So yeah, I wasn't really happy with the atmosphere of this episode. I think they could have done a little bit more to to help not only the villain, but also, like I said, help the gang feel like that there's some sort of threat or some danger involved with solving the mystery. So yeah, atmosphere very non-existent. I think it was, there wasn't anything in the atmosphere that made me have filled with tension or suspense while the gang were going through Gold City or the mine, because there was nothing really threatening their safety, or nothing that really made me, popped out at me that made me scared that, this could be a threat to the gang. That's all I got for negatives, though, so I think it's about time we get on to the positives of the episode. And what positives did I find in this episode this time around that maybe I didn't see the first time around? Well, for starters, we'll start off with the gang themselves, and I'll start with Fred. Fred, I felt, was a good leader in this episode. He really helped drive forward the mystery. He also helped piece together the clues of the episode, and he helped trap the minor 49er a little bit when he did shut the door on him. So he did all of his bare minimum stuff. He set a trap. He did it, maybe not one of his best traps, obviously. There's definitely better Fred traps. I like when he's more over the top and exquisite with his traps rather than simplistic. But I think he played a good role in the trap. And I think he served his two functions well, where he helped lead the gang throughout the mystery, and he helped piece together the clues with Velma throughout this mystery. So I very much thought he was really good in this episode. Then we have Velma. Velma also helped piece together the mystery, as she usually does, and, piece together the clues and help solve the mystery. I think Velma was good in this episode. She served her basic role in the episode, her basic function. She did what she was supposed to. I still don't like that animation error with the lipstick. It was just so cringy. Like, I just didn't like when they did that, It just was wrong. Like, Velma looks better without that. That's not her style. But, yeah, I think Velma was good. She served her bare minimum role, and she helped piece together the clues and solve the mystery of the episode. Then we have Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby had a lot to do in this episode, and I was actually really happy with how they were utilized in this episode. So for Shaggy, I thought he was a good leader in this episode whenever they would split off. Whenever Shaggy would split off from Fred, Daphne, Velma, and he was with Scooby, or he was with Velma, I thought he was a good leader, and I thought he helped to lead the pack. And it just goes to show that I kind of always thought that, besides Fred, I've always felt that Shaggy was like the secondary leader, and that's why, you could tell that because when they split up, Fred leaves one group and Shaggy leads the other group. So that tells me that a lot of people don't realize that Shaggy was a leader early on. They just don't utilize that anymore, and they kind of just, use it as, oh, these are the two that are, funny and do shenanigans and, like to eat food. So why don't we have them separate with each other, and then Fred can lead with the girls because they're the ones that help solve the mystery. No, they split up because, obviously for their dynamic, but because Shaggy's the better, the secondary leader of the gang and helps lead the way when Fred's not there. And I'll actually bring that up in a later episode, which actually does showcase that. I also like that Shaggy helped trap the minor 49er by using his imitation skills. He used his voice imitation skills, kind of like he did in the first episode, throwing his voice. Only this time, he was, more so doing imitation stuff, imitation on the microphone. So I really liked that he utilized his voice to imitate a train. I think that was really cool. I wish this stuff was in modern Scooby Doo. I really felt like they lose a lot of these cool aspects of Shaggy and Scooby, and they kind of just use them as the bare minimum, and maybe even the rest of the gang as well. They miss all these, little nuggets of information from the early on show. And I know they were still figuring out what the characters were going to be. But some of the stuff they present is actually cool and stuff that I would like to see in later shows. Like Shaggy being a very good leader. But also Shaggy throwing his voice, imitating a train, using his voice to fool the villain, to trap them. So I think Shaggy was really good with that. I really liked his role in the trap. And I thought Shaggy had a couple of funny lines in this episode. I thought he had some fun jokes, especially with the one saying, if I had a face like that, I would moan too. That was a good one. I like that one. Shaggy had a couple funny lines. But I think for this episode, Shaggy was more so a good leader, and he helped trap the minor 49er. Not too many humorous lines, but he had a couple funny lines. Scooby was also great throughout the episode. He was actually really funny in this episode. Scooby not only messed with Shaggy throughout the episode, which even though I thought was mean, I thought it was still funny I still thought there were some funny moments when Scooby would mess with Shaggy a little bit. And I also liked Scooby's shenanigans with the minor 49er. I especially liked when they were in the carts and they were being chased by the minor 49er, that at one point he was in the same cart with the miner and made like and waved at him and made a nice little laugh. It was really funny. Like Scooby was very funny in this episode, and how he dropped the miner 49er's ass down the mine shaft when he picked him up. He's like, fuck that, and dropped him right down back into the mine shaft. God, I just loved Scooby's humor. Scooby was just very funny throughout the episode when he interacted with a little bit with Shaggy, but also when he would mess with the miner 49er, like whenever he ran into him. And like I said earlier, I also like that Scooby helped trap the villain of the episode. He was the physical part of the train, while Shaggy was the voice. Scooby was kind of like the physical part of the train. He helped, sell that there was a train coming after the miner 49er and helped trap him. He did fall through the shack, and he was that one that ended up revealing that the miner 49er had stilts, because he was hanging on to his boots, and they fell down, and he fell down and revealed that there were stilts. So I think Scooby played a good role in the trap. I like that he was involved in the trap, but he was overall very funny in this episode. I loved his humor. I loved what he did with the miner 49er and with Shaggy. He was just a lot of fun in this episode. Then we have the villain outside of costume. I thought Hank outside of costume was actually pretty good. He told the story of the miner 49er to the gang, and I actually like that he kind of set up the miner 49er as a villain and told his story about how the miner 49er couldn't rest until he got the last vein of gold, and that you can hear the mines moaning for the miner or something like that. I thought that was a really cool story, and I like that he set up the miner 49er. I like when the villains do that, when they set up themselves as their alter egos as the villains. And it was really cool hearing Hank tell the story of the miner 49er. I thought the motive of the villain was good too. I liked that the motive was that he wanted to scare everybody away so he could buy the land cheap and then exploit the land to for more and drill for more oil so they could potentially make a profit. So it's kind of a combination of a money and land motive, which sounds bad on paper, but because this is the first time that this is used, like, I like the creativity of using both the money and land motive, and it's actually not like just a simplistic one. It's actually really cool. Like, he discovers this oil, he could make a profit out of it, but he doesn't want anybody else to find it. He doesn't want anybody else to take that away from him. So he needs to get people away so that way nobody gets suspicious or tries to get in on his business or steal the oil from him. So he gets rid of all of his competitors, and then he could buy the land and then get more money, and then in turn he could, make the ghost town prosperous. He can be, he can live well. And I thought that was a really good motive. I think it was creative. I think it was cool. You could definitely hear Big Ben's disappointment that him and Hank could have, really had a big business, with each other. And it seems like Big Ben, was disappointed that his partner, didn't get him in on the deal and wasn't willing to share it with him, because they could have done that together. And it seems like they were close. It seems like Big Ben and Hank were close, and he was disappointed with what Hank did. And I really felt that, at the end, and I feel bad for the guy, that Hank didn't let him in on the scheme, because they wouldn't have done it for evil purposes if Big Ben had involved in it. They would have just, made a business out of it. They would have, helped, make their guest ranch prosperous and themselves, rich. But yeah, it wasn't simplistic. It wasn't a simplistic money or land motive. It was very creative, and I actually liked it. I also liked the mystery of the episode. I thought the mystery was pretty good. You wanted to know who scared everybody away from this town to make it such a ghost town, and why did they do it? You're also wondering, is it really the ghost of the miner 49er, or is it something else that maybe people think is the miner, but it actually isn't? The mystery has a lot of what-ifs, and it's really interesting, and you want to know, who's scaring these people away, why are they doing it, and is it this supposed miner 49er, or is it something else? It's a really good mystery. It really hooks you in, and I for one, like, the questions it poses, and the gang wanting to know the answers to all these questions. I thought the clues of the episode were pretty good as well. They help point towards the Minor 49ers' motive in the episode, so you kind of had the dynamite, which is explained later on as how he, would, get the crude oil. Then you had the tape recorder hooked up to a microphone / loudspeaker, so that if anybody did come into the mine, he could use that moaning, legend, that he told in the story. He can use that as a scare tactic against any intruders that did come across the mine. And the crude oil, which explains, like, what he was, using the dynamite for, and what eventually, how, and it was like, it built his motive. So, we got to learn more about his motive because of all these clues. And while I like when clues point towards a suspect and kind of narrow down the suspect list, I do appreciate that they help point towards the motive of the episode and help us understand, the Minor 49ers' motive in the episode. I also thought the number of suspects in the episode was pretty good, in my opinion. There were only 2 suspects in the episode, Big Ben and Hank. So it was kind of a 50-50 shot, because you had Big Ben, who has the physique of the miner, but you have Hank, who has the exact same clothes as the miner, but he's shorter. So I thought it was really cool. It was definitely a good 50-50. And even though I did say, like, what a surprise it was Hank, because they did wear the same clothes, but Big Ben could have realistically been it. He did have the physique of the miner, so they did a good job of making it a 50-50, shot, of who the miner could be. So I thought the number of suspects were good. It at least fulfilled the bare minimum amount of suspects. And then finally, we had the setting of the episode, which I actually found very creepy in this episode. I like Gold City as a setting. It's actually really cool. It's a really creepy and unique setting. It's very creepy and eerie thanks to the dark lightning atmosphere. It's nighttime, there's lightning going off. And you have the dusty and vacant buildings, showing the ghost town aspect of it. And I also found the mine to be pretty creepy. You're in this, you're in this dark underground place where you're trapped inside with the supposed ghost. There's not really many areas you can go besides that elevator, but I don't know if it broke after it fell down. It did land pretty hard, but you're trapped inside a dark underground place with only a few light sources. It's a very eerie setting down there, and it's very creepy and unique, and I like Gold City as, not just a ghost town, but I like that they freshed it up too with the mine, and I think the mine was also just as creepy and eerie and really lent itself well. And while the villain was weak and didn't really take full advantage of the setting he was in, he fit the setting he was in, and he could have been better had he been tweaked a little bit. But the setting was really good. Despite the villain being weak, the setting was really good. I liked the whole vibe of it. Gold City is a very cool place. I like the ghost town aspect. I love the dusty and vacant buildings, showcasing the ghost town aspect of it all. The dark, lightning, night. It's a dark night with some lightning going off. It's not raining, but it's still pretty eerie and creepy. And you got the dark underground mine, which is very very secluded, very enclosed. You feel like there's not many places you can go down there, and you got this creepy ghost stalking you in the shadows. I really think the setting really lent itself well. I just wish it had a better I wish the villain was better, because had we had a stronger villain, this could have really been an amazing episode. But still, I enjoyed the setting for what it's worth. Overall, guys, I would recommend this episode to fans and newcomers of the show. It's not perfect by any means. It still has it may have a weak villain, which I'm not going to deny. The Minor 49er is a very weak villain. But it has a lot more good aspects going for it than I originally remembered. And I think that if you give it a shot, you'll find that there are a lot of good aspects in this episode. And yeah, a villain can make or break an episode, but just because there's one bad aspect of an episode, that doesn't necessarily mean it's an awful episode. Could the villain have been better? Absolutely. The Minor 49er could have been a lot better than he was done. And it's not like he didn't have moments to shine. I just think they needed to tweak him a little bit to make him a little bit more of a threat, an opposing, figure. Because they did give him moments where he was creepy and he was, intriguing when he was stalking the gang in the dark shadows, but they didn't take full advantage of him, and I just think that they could have done more to make him more of a threatening presence, a really scary presence. But still, I think there's a lot of good aspects to this episode, and if you get past the weak villain, you'll find that there are pretty good stuff in this episode. And like I said, it just needed a better atmosphere, a stronger villain, and given more to Daphne, and it would have been an amazing episode. It would have been perfect. But as it stands, it's still a good episode. A lot of good stuff going for it. I still recommend you check it out. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the episode. Do you like this episode? Are you like me? You think there's a lot of good aspects in it that, maybe are overlooked because and overshadowed by the weak villain? Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Is there more than just the weak villain? Just a minor that you feel that this episode didn't, achieve on? Or are you somewhere in the middle where you just think it's okay, it's nothing special, it's not good, but it's not bad either? I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. Like I said, I will have plenty more Scooby Doo content on the way. It's the focus of my 2024 summer special, as well as, Scooby Month, which will be in September. A lot of Scooby Doo content to come. Both re-reviews of Scooby Doo Where Are You?, the first 10 episodes, and a lot, most if not all of Season 1 of the new Scooby Doo movies. Maybe more if you guys want more, depending on how things go, this summer and in September. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I have discussions about things we talk about on both my channels, and Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. In my next video, I will continue my 2024 summer special with my review of Season 1, Episode 9 of the new Scooby Doo movies, The Spooky Fog of Juneberry, which is the second Don Knotts episode. So if you're interested in my thoughts on the second Don Knotts episode, join me for that in my next video. But of course, after that, we will continue my re-reviews of Scooby Doo Where Are You with Season 1, Episode 5 of Scooby Doo Where Are You, Decoy for a Dog Napper, which is a very divisive episode, because a lot of people, point towards racial stuff, which I think is dumb. I think it's really stupid. But there's also people that don't look at that, and they also just think it's like a weak story and doesn't feel very Scooby-Doo-ish. I believe I had really strong, good feelings towards it, and I actually thought it was underappreciated. It has a second chance for me to see it again and see if maybe I was being a little bit too high on it the first time. But yeah, we'll see if I still hold that opinion that it's an underrated episode, or if maybe I was a little, too high on it the first time, and maybe there are more negatives with it. So if you want to know my updated thoughts on Decoy for a Dog Napper, then join me after the next video, which to hear my thoughts. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.